do with my life. And I was like, well, I think I'm gonna start a band. That sounds easy. And no lie, she said, well, mercy me, why don't you get a real job? In my defense, I've avoided hard labor for 22 years, so take that, Mama. Gosh, we started in 94. In 99, we were working on one of our independent records, and we needed one more song. And so I went and grabbed whatever journals I had, trying to find a blank page to start writing. And every page had I Can Only Imagine on it. So I was like, okay, I get it. And so it was one of those few times in my life where the song was written like in 5 or 10 minutes, even though it had been in my heart for quite some time. And so then we were like hanging on for the ride ever since. So fast forward 10 years from that time, we were in the studio making an album called All That Is Within Me, and we were talking about how Imagine just is a song that won't go away, and how much it's changed our lives, and it's been 10 years and it's still going strong. And so we started this conversation with all of us talking about, man, I was 19 when my dad passed away, and he would not believe that he's connected to this song somehow, and that we're still talking about him all these years later. And there's so many crazy things that happen in Mercy Me, and with, I'm married with 5 amazing kids, and I can't wait until I get to see my dad and tell him all this stuff. And people are always like, bless your heart, your dad's looking down from heaven. He's so proud. And I appreciate the sentiment, but I can't find scripture that says that's true. Now, it might be. I mean, he might wear a toga and play a harp like in the Looney Tunes, but it doesn't really matter. I think he has more important things to do, like worship a living God, than stare at me all the time. But, it really isn't that important to me. It's all I know is that I believe with all of my heart that I'm going to see him again face to face. And whether he knows about it or not, he's going to have to sit there and hear it from me at least one more time. And so that's what Finally Home talks about, because I think every young man, every old man in this room can honestly, hopefully agree with me when I say that at the core of who we are, we just want to make our dad proud. And I'm no different. And the reason that was so important to me is because when my father passed away, he was the godliest man that I'd ever known, but he wasn't always that. My parents divorced when I was 3, and my mom remarried a few times. And by the time I was in 3rd grade, my stepdad was transferred to a different town. And so they decided, because of all of our family was in the town I grew up in the same school and stuff, that I would live with, my brother and I, who's 5 years older, would live with my dad. From 3rd grade on, I lived with my father. And the hard part was that everybody loved my dad. My dad was really popular. He was an All-American football player, was supposed to play pro. I was named after Bart, which is weird because I'm a Cowboys fan. But easy. Anyway. And so everybody loved my dad. The problem was my dad had an incredibly bad temper when nobody was looking, and he was very abusive to me. I don't remember many weeks where I wasn't beaten 4 or 5 times a week. If he had a bad day, he would take it out on me. And this went on pretty severely, man. I remember one time I fell asleep laying on my stomach because I couldn't turn over, because from the back of my neck to the back of my legs was literally purple and black because he had beaten me so bad. And that wasn't that uncommon. And this went on until about 6th grade. I went through kind of a growth spurt, so he never really laid another finger on me, but he tore me apart emotionally until probably my freshman year in high school. This is when my father was diagnosed with cancer. And this was bittersweet for me, because part of me was glad because I thought all this would come to an end. The other part of me was devastated because it was my dad. It's all that I knew. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I was given this front row seat to see the gospel transform someone like I'd never seen before, and I've rarely seen since. My dad went from literally being a monster to being a man who was desperately and passionately in love with Christ. And I don't say that lightly, and because honestly, I didn't want grace to be for him. And he hurt me bad. And I guess the best part about it was the change was undeniable. It wasn't about the things he did when everybody was watching. It's about the things he did when nobody was watching. We never prayed in my house, not at Thanksgiving, Christmas. We just never did. And all of a sudden, every night I would hear my dad just praying out loud from my room into his bedroom and just crying over my brother and myself and my mom, who divorced when I was 3. It's like, who is this guy? My dad never wanted to be in a hospital, and so for those 4 or 5 years, he went from 370 pounds, and he was 111 pounds when he passed away. And he he spent most of that time at home. And so his bedroom became kind of a hospital. And I remember nightly just going and checking on him as he literally kind of withered away over the years. And he would always fall asleep with his face in the Word. And so I would move it to his nightstand, and he would wake up, and we would start talking for hours on end, all the time, about everything. And there would always be a moment where he'd be in tears, and almost every conversation it would end the same way. I'm so sorry for the things I've done to you. I wish I could fix it. And looking back, I don't know if I realized at the time, but every time we had those conversations, it was like a small part of me was being repaired. By the time he passed away, like I said, he was the godliest man I've ever known. He's the guy that I want to be like if I ever grow up. And even though it's a happy ending to me, I would be kidding you if I didn't say that I've had baggage along the way. You know, I married, my wife, Shannon, was my first girlfriend in 7th grade. And we didn't date that whole time. She came to her senses in college, but you know, it's tough. She's obviously not here. But we were best friends that whole time, and she knew my dad, and she knew the change that had taken place. And so it was like we were destined to be together. It was such a fairy tale kind of thing. We've been married for 19 years. We have 5 amazing kids, and yeah, thanks. But you know, we definitely have had our issues along the way, because I learned pretty quickly that I don't deal with stressful situations very well. You know, I kind of take all the blame on myself and everything. I'm like a wounded puppy. So I'm like, everything's my fault. If something would happen, whether a loved one would pass away or something just go wrong, I would be in the fetal position in the corner sucking my thumbs. I didn't know how to handle anything. And so my wife was like, here's a thought. We should go to counseling so we don't kill each other. I was like, man, that's a great idea. I don't want to die. So we saw this godly, amazing counselor who not only saved our marriage, I think she saved my life. And it was cool because there was this moment during counseling where I guess it's kind of what you call like a breakthrough moment. What I mean by that is that moment where you're crying like that ugly cry, like Goodwill Hunting cry where snot's flying everywhere and it's like you're embarrassed by it. Well, I had that moment and all she did was she said, you know, if you've ever wondered what you would have looked like in a godly family environment, just watch your middle son, Charlie, because he's just like you. Charlie was 8 at the time. I started bawling, like uncontrollably crying. And I don't know exactly why, maybe because the first thought was that it's kind of like this do-over, like I've been given the chance to be the father that my dad couldn't be to me for all those years. Maybe it's because she accused us of being a godly family environment. I was just like, pay the woman, we win. Whatever it may be, I do know that Charlie, bless his heart, I probably stare at him more than I do the others now. I have for years, overanalyzing everything that he does. Like, why'd you pick the Cheerios over Fruit Loops? Is that where I went wrong? But man, it got me thinking, if I could ever sit down and have a conversation with the 8-year-old version of me, with everything that I've gone through in my life, with everything that you've gone through in your life, if you could have a second to talk to that innocent kid, what would you say to him? The blessing and the curse of being a songwriter is that my therapy is that I write songs about it. And I thought this is a cool idea for a song, not realizing it was going to be one of the hardest songs ever written because I didn't know what to say. I remember like stressing out as if he was going to actually walk in the room and expect something from me. And I couldn't get out of my head for quite some time. And then just driving in my car alone one night, it just dawned on me, I know what I would say to him. So this song I say it's a conversation, but he doesn't really talk back. So it's the one-sided conversation with the 8-year-old version of me. I hope you like it. The song is